From the University of Redlands, you are listening to KDOG College Radio. This debate between the candidates for the 31st Congressional District is taking place in the Memorial Chapel here at the University of Redlands.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight to our debate in the race for California's 31st Congressional District. If you're tweeting or Instagramming or Facebooking, that's hashtag CA31. Can't hear? Is that better? Okay. I'll just lean into it a little bit. So as I was saying, if you're tweeting, Facebooking, or Instagramming, that's hashtag CA31, which gets picked up on our websites. My name is Frank Pine. I'm the managing editor of the Los Angeles News Group, supervising editor of our 3 inland papers, the Sun, the Daily Bulletin, and of course, the Redlands Daily Facts. Thank you. Election season is a great time of year. It's actually one of my favorite seasons. It's usually lots of news. It's kind of like Christmas for journalists. Anyhow, I want to thank you again for all coming out. It's very gratifying to see the public really engaged in the political process. We're all for a well-informed citizenry. Government for the people and by the people is a wonderful thing, one of the greatest things about our great country. And now it is my distinct privilege to introduce to you Dr. Ralph Kunzel, who is the president of the University of Redlands. Dr. Kunzel is... Dr. Kunzel is the 11th president of the university in its 107-year history, a very prestigious post. We are very grateful to him for offering us this venue and partnering with us on this event. So thank you very much, Dr. Kunzel.
Why do public electoral debates get hosted at universities? After all, they could be at other large venues like stadiums, churches, synagogues, corporate headquarters. There's a long list of reasons and precedents, and that's why we're here tonight. So welcome all of you to the University of Redlands. Here we view ourselves as equal partners with the town of Redlands, founded by the town, of the town, for the town, emblemized by the very organization called Town and Gown. We're pleased to have the community come together with the intent of being more informed voters. There is no more important factor for our democratic future as a nation than casting educated votes. Since Thomas Jefferson, the ideal of citizenship has been voting rights, and the aspiration that an educated citizenry is the ultimate path for democracy. Private colleges are especially nonpartisan by nature of their being not-for-profit, and therefore required by the federal government to be free of bias and not advocating for any one political party or candidate. Here at the university, we are educating global citizens in a nonpartisan environment. That's what college campuses have been doing and should be doing. We're proud to be among those important institutions committed to bettering our tomorrows by what we do today and tonight. Universities, since the earliest such institutions in Bologna in medieval Europe, have been the most public marketplace of ideas. Think of Galileo and Isaac Newton, who were trounced not for their rhetoric, but for their revolutionary ideas. And finally, universities are famous for putting strong efforts into getting out the vote. In this country, we have a terrible record of voter turnout. The youthfulness and energy of the collegiate electorate is often seen as being a leader in voting, as is the older segment of the generations that people like me represent. We older voters are sometimes viewed as being driven by self-interests. Younger voters are stereotyped as idealistic and altruistic. On our campus this year, our students are notable for their initiative in getting those of voting age to exercise their rights and responsibilities as voters, but are not known for partisanship. Because of the confluence of all these factors, the leadership for public debates has historically come from places like the League of Women Voters, or news organizations, or other nonprofit groups, who devote themselves to the singular mission of getting out informed voters as the best demonstration of our citizenship in a democracy. Only presidential debates have remained in the control of party leaders. And where do we hold our debates? Most often on the college campuses of America. And so we carry on that tradition tonight. We thank the Redlands Daily Facts for sponsoring this event, and especially editor Tony Momberger, who has been so instrumental in making this happen. We welcome and thank our two congressional candidates, Pete Aguilar and Paul Chabot. We thank them for their commitment and energy in being willing to run for office. It's not a totally pleasant experience to be trying to communicate your good ideas while also needing to raise many thousands of dollars, and to do both across many different communities. We owe them our gratitude. With that, I'd like to introduce Michael Anastasi, Vice President and Executive Editor of the Los Angeles News Group. He assumed that role in August 2012 after spending 8 years as managing editor of the Salt Lake Tribune and being a professional journalist for 29 years. Mr. Anastasi now oversees the editorial operations of the LA News Group's 9 daily newspapers and websites. Michael.
Thank you, President Kuntzel, and thank you to all of our gracious hosts here at the University of Redlands. Vigorous debate and community participation are indeed hallmarks of democracy. We are so grateful that all of you made time to be here tonight for this event, and we also thank the candidates for their willingness to serve. Too often, that willingness is overlooked and taken for granted. There's another group I would like to thank tonight and recognize. It does take a lot, an awful lot, for a citizen to be willing to be a candidate, to put themselves out there, to be scrutinized and criticized. But it takes even more from the candidates' families to provide their support and their love, and to continue through all of this that we call a campaign to try and be a normal family. So for just a brief moment, I would like to ask for the candidates' families to please rise and be recognized. On behalf of publisher Ron Hasse and the entire Los Angeles News Group, which includes the Redlands Daily Facts, just like to get that out there again. Again, thank you for being here tonight, and it's my pleasure at this time to introduce Tony Momberger, editor of the Redlands Daily Facts and the moderator of tonight's debate.
Welcome. I'm going to just come out and say it. This event is certainly outside of my small community news expertise. Coming up close to the election, I recognized that we had a tight race and an important race and two very strong candidates and no debate in sight. And I either had to broaden my knowledge or let the opportunity go by. So on short notice, I educated myself. I've learned the word federal and the extent to which Schoolhouse Rock let me down. The University of Redlands partnered with us as soon as the great interest became evident, and I'm very grateful to them for providing this large venue to accommodate so many of you who wanted to be here tonight. And of course, I thank both candidates for agreeing to participate and for their willingness to serve. Representing the Republican Party, I introduce you to Dr. Paul Chabot of Rancho Cucamonga, a lieutenant commander in the Navy who owns a homeland security and political consulting firm. Dr. Paul Chabot. Representing the Democrat Party, I introduce you to Redlands Mayor Pete Aguilar, who owns a government affairs consulting firm. I have had the chance to talk with both of them, and they have impressive, thoughtful ideas for solving some of the problems in our district and our country today. I'm proud to give them the opportunity to share those with you tonight. There are many who are here tonight to learn who these candidates are and how they propose to represent our district. Please be respectful to that purpose by keeping your response to a polite applause. No signs will be allowed. Each candidate will give opening and closing remarks and have 90 seconds to answer questions pre-selected by the panel, and up to 30 seconds to rebut. Mayor Aguilar won the coin toss and will be addressed first. The panelists may ask follow-up questions. Our panelists tonight are Dr. Brian Janiski, the chairman of the Political Science Department at Cal State University. And Mr. Bo Yarbrough, political reporter for Inland Newspaper Group. Keeping the clock tonight, my husband, Doug Momberger, has volunteered to help. This debate will be broadcast live on KDOG, the campus college radio. It's online. If you Google KDAWG, you can follow along on the radio. And they will be making a recording of the event. It's also being streamed live on our website at redlandsdailyfacts.com. And now, Mayor Aguilar, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you to Bo and to Dr. Janiski as well, to the Redlands Daily Facts and to LA News Group, and to President Kunsel and the University of Redlands for opening up the great memorial chapel for us. My name's Pete Aguilar. I'm a husband, father, small business owner, and the mayor of the city of Redlands. But my story starts in Fontana. I was born at Kaiser Permanente. I was a $2 copay baby, and my mom, seated right over there, says I was worth every dollar. I was born in San Bernardino to working-class parents who knew the value of hard work, but also the value that education can play in unlocking our potential. Through the magic of student loans that I'm still paying off, an investment of a federal Pell Grant, 2 jobs, one on campus and one off, and loving parents, I was able to graduate from this fine university in 4 years with 2 degrees. For the last 8 years, I've served on the Redlands City Council, the last 4 of which is your mayor. Here in Redlands, we work together to accomplish common goals. It's what we do, it's who we are, it's in our DNA. I'm running for Congress because I feel that we need to build an economy that's fair for the middle class. We need to build an economy that's fair for each and every one of us. You're going to hear some contrast this evening, and that's okay. You're going to hear some different sides of some different issues, and that's just fine. I released a middle-class initiative earlier in the campaign. It's been the hallmark of what we've been doing and talking about. It means investing in education. It means creating jobs for a new economy. And it means making sure that we honor the commitment to our seniors and our veterans. I'm the only one up here on stage with a proven track record to work across the aisle in order to get things done. That's what we need is your representative in Congress, and that's what I would pledge to do. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Aguilar. Dr. Chabot.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to thank the Redlands Daily Fax and the University of Redlands. You want to switch mics?
I got the Starship Enterprise over here.
You do. Check, check. Test, test, test. How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Can you hear me now? All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to thank the Redlands Daily Fax and the University of Redlands for organizing and hosting this event. I'd also like to thank Mayor Aguilar for agreeing to participate. I'd like to recognize and honor my beautiful wife, Brenda, all of our friends and family and volunteers throughout. God bless you all. Tonight, I have the privilege of standing on this stage as the Republican candidate for the 31st Congressional District. This evening, you will hear about my views on various issues, but I also hope you will get to understand my belief and optimism in America and how this district plays a key role for our country and the future of our region. Throughout our history, the United States has been a place of freedom for those who seek prosperity, health, and refuge from oppression. It is also a place where someone with my background, a kid from the poor, a single parent, home, lived on a dirt road, can make it to this stage through hard work and education. While this is still an amazing country with blessings sometimes hard to fathom, we are sadly becoming a place of fewer opportunities for many, including our college students, our middle class, families, children, and veterans. At no point in my lifetime has the U.S. ever had a weaker standing in the world than it does today. By a show of hands, how many of you think that America is headed in the wrong direction? Ladies and gentlemen, look around. Look around at all of you and us, the united vision we share, and understand the turmoil before us. I am running for this seat because I know we can turn this country around, and because the Inland Empire should be a leader in driving growth and a better future for the rest of the nation. We have one of the most diverse regions of the country. We have top-rated universities, a skilled workforce, and opportunities for manufacturing, healthcare, and many other sectors. Yet our policies continue to drive out businesses, leaving thousands of middle-class families behind. This is unacceptable. And frankly, it goes against everything that our country promises. We can do better, and we will do better. If elected to represent you in Congress, I promise to work hard to make the 31st a place of jobs, family, and safety. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot. Bo Yarbrough, you have the first question.
Good evening, gentlemen. Illegal immigration has economic, health, and environmental facets. In your opinion, what are the key points we should focus on in the illegal immigration discussion? What changes do you propose to current policy?
Great, thank you for the question. First and foremost,
I'm sorry, Pete Aguilar won the coin toss, and he'll be answering first.
Me and the Starship Enterprise over here.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
bring it.
The immigration discussion comes down to 3 points: national security, the economy, and families. We need comprehensive immigration reform. It's a travesty that Congress still hasn't delivered on this issue, and it's something that I pledge to work on. We're a nation of immigrants, and I firmly believe that the immigrant story is the American story. Here in this region, we honor our heritage and value our diversity. We need to secure the border, but we need a comprehensive path to citizenship. For the 11 million people who are here today, we need to offer a path to citizenship if they're willing to pay back taxes and if they're willing to submit to a background check. It's good for our economy, and it will keep our region together. You're eating into my time here. The notion that you can just deport 11 million people is wrong policy. My opponent supports a radical Arizona proposal. He wanted it here in California that would support racial profiling. That's a wrong policy for this region and for San Bernardino County.
Dr. Chabot.
Thank you. Since 2001, over 8.5 million people have become U.S. citizens. And in 2013 alone, over 500,000 were naturalized. And God bless them. Look, first and foremost, we must secure our border. I often say from a military intelligence perspective, if a child can walk across our border, certainly a terrorist can as well. So securing our border must be essential. And so I understand how critical this issue is, but we also must be compassionate. And part of that compassion means working with Central and South America. What we need to do as a government is understand that government is not always the answer. In fact, many times when we do things big, we break things and make things worse. What we need to do is understand that as a nation, we can replicate successes of Plan Colombia, of what the U.S. did in the 1980s to help secure that nation from corruption and lack of societal rule of law. I'm a father, I have 4 kids. I get it if you're a mom or dad in Mexico or Latin America with the corruption and violence you want to get out. But we should mandate that our U.S. federal foreign aid dollars that go to Mexico go to 2 things: increasing societal rule of law and rooting out corruption so that the good people of Mexico want to stay safely in their country. That has got to be part of our plan, but securing our border first.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot. Mayor Aguilar, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, we need to secure our borders, but we need a path to citizenship for the 11 million people who are here among us. That's an important issue. There are young people here today, university students from U of R or Cal State. They're dreamers. They know no other country than the United States. We need to make sure that they realize their full potential to be members of our society. We can and should do that, but we need comprehensive immigration reform in order to get there.
Thank you. Dr. Chabot, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, I do have 30 seconds to respond. Okay, look, Pete Aguilar, I really respect this. I think this is a compassionate issue that we all feel. The problem is this has become so politicized, so oftentimes forced by divisive nature in politics that we get away from the real solutions. But the real solution is these people, many of them love their nations, but they come here for fear, and we've got to make sure as the global force for good on this globe that we help these foreign nations with our federal foreign aid to make their nation safe and secure and prosperous.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the confusion. That was entirely my fault. Dr. Chabot, the second question comes from Brian Janiski.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Dr. Chabot, do you believe that climate change is a significant threat? If so, what action should Congress be taking to meet this environmental challenge? If not, how and to what degree would you oppose federal actions that are motivated on the premise of climate change?
Sure. I appreciate that question. Thank you. I wholeheartedly support steps for a cleaner environment. I think we all do. I grew up here in Southern California. I remember as a child the smog days that we had. We couldn't go out to recess. I get it and I understand it. But the problem is there are extremists within the environmental movement that are really gutting this nation, from our jobs to our coal mines. We can't even get a good pipeline coming in from Canada across. We talk about environmental issues. No matter how well the United States of America does in cutting carbons, when the free world across this globe, like China and other nations, are dumping carbons into the environment, I ask this administration and others, don't punish the good American worker and break our backs when we have other nations across this world which are doing 100 times worse the pollutants than what we have. And frankly, one place where tremendous strides can be made is in renewable energy. In the U.S. military, and I'm a Navy lieutenant commander, I'm proud that this year the U.S. Navy developed liquid hydrocarbon fuel out of seawater, which will allow ships to stay 100% operational without having to refuel at sea. I strongly believe these are outstanding attributes that we can replicate, but sadly, the Obama administration has taken a backwards approach on this issue by throwing away billions of dollars and loan guarantees to politically connected and questionable companies like Solyndra and others. We can do better. We can do better.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot. Mayor Aguilar?
I absolutely believe that climate change is a threat. I think it's unfortunate that we're even having this discussion. I think that the discussion is better poised on the second part of the question that discusses what do we do about this moving forward. What we can do. We grew up in San Bernardino. We grew up in the city of San Bernardino. I know what it's like to have air quality concerns. I know that we need to do better for our kids and our grandkids in this community. We need to support policies that make us, that help us limit emissions in our communities. It's what the City of Redlands did by passing a climate action plan in a bipartisan way, I should tell you. Local communities in the state of California are taking the initiative to do this on our own because we lack federal leadership. If the federal government can act, then local communities will follow suit. But we also believe here in this community that you think globally and you act locally. My opponent didn't answer the question. He doesn't believe that climate change is happening. It's what he said in the past. And I think he needs to answer that question. It puts him out of step, not only with the environmental community, but with the scientific community and the Department of Defense. Just last week, the Department of Defense and the Pentagon put out a report on climate change, calling it an imminent and significant threat. We need to address this at the federal level.
Thank you, Mayor Aguilar. Dr. Chabot, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Mr. Aguilar, look, thank you for those comments. Maybe you agreed with Al Gore that by now the ice caps would be gone. As we know, they are expanding, and I think it is very challenging when we go to extremes on this issue because this is the concern. This is why little can be done. Certainly, we want clean air and clean water for our kids, but the extremism has driven out businesses, closed down companies in Colton, and it's hurting the middle class. We need to be very cautious about how we do this for the strength, security, and safety of the United States of America.
This is the issue of our time, and this is what this election boils down to. Clear contrast like this issue. We need to address climate change. We need to have emissions targets. We need to take action at the federal level. And my opponent will not answer the question whether he believes in this. And I think it's an important issue. It is absolutely an important issue that we need to address. And it puts him out of step.
Excuse me, Mayor Aguilar, I'm going to stop you for a moment. Everybody's here to hear what the candidates have to say. I'm going to ask you to be respectful of their time. Thank you. Please continue.
His position puts him out of step, not only with the environmental community, but the science-based community and the Department of Defense, which recently discussed this issue.
Thank you. And to Mayor Aguilar, the third question is from Bo Yarbrough.
The Affordable Care Act was a landmark change to U.S. health policy. What, if any, changes to this law would you support in your first term in Congress? Do you favor a dramatic expansion of this law, a modification, a wholesale replacement, or are you content with the current policy?
As a father, I know what it's like to look at your kids and to see when they're hurting and to see when they're not well. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be a father, to be a mother who looks at their kids and they don't have health insurance. They don't have coverage and they have pre-existing conditions. What we can't do is go back to a time when insurance companies got to make the decisions over who is covered and who isn't. We need to keep what works, and we need to fix what doesn't. And where there are impacts on small businesses, we need to be able to work with one another in order to accomplish that. But what we can't do is go back to a time when being a woman was a pre-existing condition. We can't let insurance companies make these choices.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot.
Thank you. I will work to reform Obamacare. I think there has been many challenges with this that has hurt the middle class. We all know the lie now that this president said, if you want to keep your doctor, or you like your doctor, you can keep it. No, you can't. We lost our family doctor. We lost the doctor who delivered our babies. We understand why people are moving out of this, so it needs to be reformed. For instance, I want everyone to be able to keep their doctors. We need to reform this. But I do think we should cover pre-existing conditions. I think that's a critical, compassionate part of this. But what we need to do is understand that the government is not the answer for these solutions. We already have a national-run healthcare system, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the VA, and that has failed our veterans across this country. President Obama, fix our VA hospital systems first before trying to nationalize health care for all of us. It took me 9 months after I got back from Iraq to get my first appointment. Medications are not on formulary. We have nurses today that are leaving, small businesses which are not expanding. We need to be compassionate. I grew up without health insurance. I know what it's like, but I worked hard to achieve the American dream.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
We need to keep what works and fix what doesn't. That's what we can do to make positive change. That's the only thing that we can do. My opponent just said government is not the answer, and that's fine. And I look forward to his comments about Social Security and Medicare. But the truth of the matter is that half of the uninsured in San Bernardino County are now covered. Thousands of kids with pre-existing conditions now have health care.
Thank you. In 30 seconds.
Families can't even pay their co-pays now under Obamacare. You have companies and people which are looking at their premiums where they have a $10,000 or higher deductible in some of these plans. You have companies like Walmart and others which are shuttering them into the so-called Obamacare, and families don't like it, ladies and gentlemen. We have got to reform. We cannot stay the path that my opponent has selected. It is disingenuous. We need to protect the rights and privacies of our health care, keep our doctors, and make the system better.
Thank you. The fourth question will be addressed to Paul Chabot first, and it's coming from Dr. Janiski.
Gentlemen, now turning to foreign affairs. Can the threat of ISIS be met purely with airstrikes and economic interference? If not, under what circumstances would you vote to send ground forces into the Middle East to confront this threat?
Let me first say, ladies and gentlemen, many of us, how many veterans are in this room? Raise your hands. God bless you all. Give them a big round. For all the veterans in this room, for those of us that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and to watch city after city fall because this president could not get a forces of status agreement with this nation, is a disservice to all of us who watched our brethren fall when Fallujah, Mosul, and other cities were taken by ISIS, a worldwide threat that would eliminate every single one of us in this room for not conforming to their ideology. We already have ground forces in Iraq, ladies and gentlemen, over 1,800. We have special operation forces, boots on the ground, as the media has contended, which is helping. No war has ever been won by air alone. As soldiers, we all want peace. But this is a battle of good versus evil, and this battle against evil will not be won by the air alone. Going into battle and sending your sons or daughters is one of the most important tasks of a commander-in-chief, and I don't take it lightly. I know what it's like when I left my wife and our 6-month-old baby while she was pregnant to go overseas. But we also know we have an inherent duty as Americans to protect and defend this great nation against savages. And so the challenges that we have before us, ladies and gentlemen, is do we stay status quo and allow an enemy to grow throughout the globe in Iraq and the Horn of Africa and other regions? Or do we stand up boldly as Americans always have and face that threat head on until elimination to secure the United States of America and our freedoms? Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Aguilar.
The threat of ISIS is real. This is a terrorist organization with no regard for human life. Anyone who kills an American abroad should be held accountable. That's why I support the intelligence community working in the region in order to have key strikes and destroy them. I think that it's what we can do. Fighting an ideology, if we've learned anything over the last 14 years, fighting an ideology alone can't be done with ground troops. We need to be careful, and I believe that that's what we can do, but supporting targeted airstrikes is the right approach.
"30 seconds.
Nothing concerns me more than the statement my opponent just said. Under his vision, ISIS grows in the world and continues to be a threat. We can never allow that kind of thinking perpetrate into our military. We have lost a brain drain of generals and admirals who are leaving out of fear of this nation. There is utter incompetence at the top down, and our men and women in the free world are suffering for it. Airstrikes alone, 3 to 5 a day, are not going to eliminate ISIS as it grows daily. We must be bold and brave, ladies and gentlemen.
And 30 seconds.
30 seconds again? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that what we can do is have targeted, limited airstrikes, and I think that's the right approach. We know that we can attack. We know that we can go out there. It's how we've killed other terrorists, and I believe that we can limit ISIS by having that approach.
Okay, thank you. The fifth question will be directed toward Mayor Aguilar from Beau Yarborough.
On what issues do you each deviate from the Republican-Democratic Party line?
President Obama, a Democrat and a member of my party, has overstepped when it comes to the NSA. The bulk collection of data is an important issue, and it's something that I disagree with my party on. The gathering of this data, we need to balance our national security efforts with our personal right to privacy. It's what we can do, and I would work with Congress in order to do that. But the executive also needs to be held accountable of either party when they overstep in this way.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that stance because we do need to hold this administration accountable on many issues. Throughout this race, voters have gravitated toward our campaign because I'm an independent Republican. During the primary, I was not endorsed by the Republican Party. Yet we prevailed because of our commitment and principles. In fact, one area where I disagree with the majority of the Republican Party was on the Ryan Murray budget deal, which cut cost of living adjustments for military retirees. I even wrote an op-ed which was published on this very matter. Look, there are many opportunities for cost savings to balance our budget, but we should never do it on the backs of our men and women in uniform. I am a proud Republican and conservative, but I will always put my principles and needs above the party. God bless you. God bless this country for asking that question.
I predict a rebuttal is not necessary here. Do you want one?
Yeah, I'll take one.
Okay, 30 seconds.
On another issue, my opponent just said he would never balance the budget on the backs of veterans. Yet he brought up and he proposed a 20% cut across the board, with the exception of public safety, when he ran for California office. That type of approach That would have hit the California Department of Veterans Affairs. It would have hit education to the tune of over $19 billion. It's the wrong approach for this region and the wrong approach that we need to send.
Dr. Chabot, I expect you would like a rebuttal.
There's an old saying, if you say a lie enough times, you'll start believing yourself. Look, at that time in 2010, I was talking about the bloated federal
I'm sorry.
bureaucracies.
Please be respectful.
Not at the individual level. As a father of 4 with 4 children, I have a doctorate degree in education. My mother's a public school teacher, for crying out loud. Yet my opponent and his campaign have been so disingenuous, spending millions of dollars in fear tactics, and you heard it here today. That is not respectful, my friend.
The 6th question will be directed to Dr. Chabot from Dr. Janiski.
Gentlemen, I'd like to turn to the economy. Technically speaking, we're in a recovery, but many Americans and many people in our region are still hurting. In recent years, the city of San Bernardino went into bankruptcy, for example. The county has had higher than national unemployment rates, and the housing collapse in the Inland Empire was among the biggest nationally. How do you propose to improve the economy?
As a reserve deputy sheriff for 19 years for this county, I've had an opportunity to patrol many of these communities, working with our indigent and our poor and our well-off and our middle class of all spectrums. I have pretty much seen it all, but I've seen what happens to a city like San Bernardino when you lose a military base without a true plan on how to replicate that. We lost many, many jobs from an irresponsible decision. We saw skyrocketing crime that has followed, and now a bankrupt city with extreme challenges. But we need to bring good-paying jobs back to the entire region. Not a lot of dollar stores and Dollar Trees and Dollar Generals. God bless the people that work there, but we need better-paying jobs to elevate all of you in the Inland Empire so you can afford houses. We need to reduce our tax rates. We need to reduce crime so that families can live safe, and we want to relocate here rather than fleeing the Inland Empire. We need to encourage our state officials, and God bless Mike Morrell for being here, taking the fight to the state legislators about the ridiculous policies that drive out our businesses. We need to encourage our Fortune 500 companies to relocate here, to use our 130,000 military veterans with tremendous job skills, many of them out of work, to make this the Silicon Valley of the Southern California. We need to increase our hub zones. We need to help small businesses, as a small business, have that access to capital so that we can grow. We need to eliminate that piece of Obamacare that mandates that businesses. Out of time. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot. And Mayor Aguilar.
This comes down to jobs, jobs, jobs. You know the story of the Inland Empire. You don't need me telling it. When I was growing up in San Bernardino, there were 3 large employers: Norton Air Force Base, Kaiser Steel, and the railroads. Those operations have ramped down now, and we need to bring back manufacturing. We need to make investments in infrastructure that will create jobs and pave the way to economic development. It's exactly what we need to do to kickstart our economy and to make sure things are moving forward. We can have small business tax incentives as well that help us hire veterans. We need to send the message that the Inland Empire is open for business. But one of the local issues we can address is the local control of Ontario Airport. We need to control. If we want to take back our economy, we need local control of Ontario Airport.
"30 seconds.
We can dream all we want, but unless we change those broken policies that got us here in the first place, we're going to end up right back where we were, ladies and gentlemen. By a show of hands, how many of you feel today you're better off than you were a few years ago? Raise your hand. God bless you. Maybe you can help hire some of us that are looking for jobs, because many of us don't feel that way. What we need in this region is an honest discussion about how to change these things, but it requires smart policy, limited government, tax breaks to thrive the middle class when so many of us are hurting. We got to stop the dreams. We've got to change the policies so that we can make this a wonderful, strong Inland Empire region as it once was in this great nation.
Thank you. In 30 seconds.
Here in Redlands, we build coalitions in order to move things forward. I serve on the Regional Transportation Agency that's made billions of dollars of improvements that will help kickstart our local economy. But businesses like Precision Hermetic, located off of Park Avenue, none of you have probably heard of them. They're a manufacturer, locally owned, that's creating jobs in San Bernardino County. Yes, we have Amazon jobs. Yes, we have other Fortune 500 companies who have made Redlands their home, but we also have small manufacturers who are helping to move our economy forward. We can make sure that it comes back again, and we, as local residents, we can be part of that.
The seventh question will be addressed by Bo Yarbrough, first to Mayor Aguilar.
Gentlemen, Congress is gridlocked. Even with both of you having stated previously that you tend to reach across the aisle, there has to be somebody else willing to take your hands. What can you do to help unstick the logjam in Washington?
I'll do exactly what I've done here in Redlands, and I know some of my city council colleagues are here. Councilmember John Harrison, former city council member Jerry Bean. I even saw Mick Gallagher's mustache around here. I don't know where Mick's at, but I saw his mustache. You know, I think that what we can do is by working together to accomplish things. That means having real, genuine discussion about the issues of importance and the issues of our day. Yes, we have occasional differences, but we work through those in order to achieve a common good. That's what we've done here in Redlands. We've balanced the last 5 city budgets. We've created record reserves. We've increased the credit rating of the city. We've invested in infrastructure, those street and road improvements that you see outside that have created jobs. We've done all of that by working together. And I think my colleagues would tell you, even those who disagree with me at times, that I would set the tone through temperament and style, by listening collaboratively, by working together, by making sure that I listen twice as much as I talk. Those are the things that true leaders do, and that's what Congress needs to do. That's what your congressman needs to do in order to help unstick the gridlock.
Dr. Chabot.
Thank you. I was raised by a Blue Dog Democrat. My grandmother spent 30 years in the Pittsburgh steel mills, and she talked to me until on her deathbed at how the party had changed from the one that she remembered of JFK in his great inauguration speech. We have different parties today, ladies and gentlemen, with different ideologies and missions and values, unfortunately, and I can tell you, I'm honored to have the endorsement of Congressman Jerry Lewis from Redlands. As you know, he represented this fine community for 34 years. Throughout his career, he was well respected by members of the right and left for finding areas of common ground and focusing in on those issues. If elected to Congress, I will prioritize my time by focusing on issues where I believe consensus already exists. For example, Republicans and Democrats and even President Obama can all agree that the U.S. needs to lower its corporate tax rate, which is one of the highest in the developed world. If elected to Congress, I will work with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to bring tax rates down so that American companies can be more competitive here in the homeland, to bring back investment dollars that are currently parked overseas. I worked for both President Clinton and President Bush in the White House for 6 years as a fellow and then a senior advisor on issues of mutual concern. State Parole Board worked there full-time, although my opponent likes to let you believe I worked 1 day a month, and was unanimously confirmed by the very liberal state Democrats in the Senate because I had a one-to-one conversation about how to protect public safety. Thank you.
Congress is broken because people can't find middle ground, and when they do, they're penalized. In the U.S. Senate, they've passed comprehensive immigration reform, Democrats and Republicans, but it sits in the U.S. House of Representatives having not been acted on. That's wrong. What we need to do, and I'm glad my opponent brought up the tax rate, we need to make sure that the tax rates work for everybody, because you as a small business, I as a small business, and Dr. Chabot as a small business don't play by the same rules as these big guys who have teams of lawyers who will search through loopholes. We need to instill fairness in the tax rate.
And also key to this conversation is, how do we send people to Congress who are not going to be bought and paid for by special interests? That's the bottom line. Because no matter how much talking we do, unless you are courageous and honorable, that special interest money flowing into campaigns across this country has degraded this political process.
Mayor Aguilar, are you asking for a rebuttal?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad my opponent brought up special interests, because this works both ways. When special interests support him, it's par for the course. When other folks, he has benefited from special interests investing in this race just as I have, and I think it's unfair to say otherwise.
Dr. Chabot, if you would like to respond.
Let me respond directly to that. My opponent, God bless him, will take money from anybody. He has even taken money from drug legalization groups of $3,000, but he talks about education. When 20% of our kids today are suffering from drug usage in their schools, who will you not take money from? What we need to do is make sure that the people are held accountable. We look at the records and where they're getting their money from and who they're going to be responsible to when elected in Congress. It's about courage, honor, and ethics. That's what we learn in the military. As a family man, I take those same values home.
I am going to move on to the next question. You will have time in your closing statements. The eighth question will be directed to Dr. Chabot first, from Dr. Janiski.
This question is about Social Security, and there are people here, young and old and in between, who have many concerns about it. When the program first started, there were about 10 workers for every retiree. And when many of the students here in this room are in their prime earning years, there are only going to be 2 of them for every retiree. So Social Security, as currently configured, faces an uncertain financial future. What do you propose the federal government do to prevent the collapse of this program?
You know, a great question, a difficult issue. As I said, I was raised by my grandmother who had a very small Social Security, and she talked about living on that small income and then the donut hole that she had to deal with her medical, and so I grew up in that environment. But it's a good question, one we need to answer and hear tonight, but one which requires real leadership and tough decisions to keep the program sustainable and to honor the promises. Facts are facts. The Social Security Administration itself projects a cash flow deficit of about $77 billion over the next 4 years before skyrocketing into 2018. I believe we can do the following to protect Social Security, not just for our parents and ourselves, but also for my children and your children and grandchildren. We should consider stop paying benefits to the wealthy. We should look at making sure that those who are currently in the system receive what they were due and what they were promised, but to revamp the system and consider raising the retirement age for the next generation, and so they know what they are then getting into. And most importantly, we just need to grow our economy. If we could stimulate this with tax reductions, because our government has raided Social Security trust funds on too many occasions, if we had growth in our economy and tax revenue flowing in, Congress wouldn't be taking the money away from our seniors and future generations. We got to stop kicking the can down the road.
Mayor Aguilar.
This issue is personal for me. Both of my grandmothers, one who's here today, worked hard and paid into the system. And we promised them, we made a commitment to them that it would be there for them. We need to strengthen and honor that commitment. I am unwavering in my support of Social Security and strengthening the program. There are things that I'm willing to do and things that I'm won't willing to do. What I'm won't willing to do is to privatize the program and put it in the hands. I will not support privatizing it and putting it in the hands of Wall Street bankers. It's the wrong approach for San Bernardino County families. What I am willing to do is to consider raising the cap on those millionaires and billionaires who are paying into the system as well. My opponent is campaigning around San Bernardino County with the same Republicans who have voted to privatize Social Security. It's the wrong approach for San Bernardino County seniors.
I think you'll find a lot of commonalities in that based on our personal backgrounds and experiences. It is a critical issue amongst many critical issues. But I think it's one of the most important items of our times for our seniors, because I can't tell you the doors that I've gone to where they've gotten a piece of mail from my opponent saying, I'm going to take away your Social Security. Ladies and gentlemen, couldn't be farther from the truth. We have to protect our seniors, remember that this great nation was built upon their backs, and keep our promise to every single one of you. And I pledge that promise today.
I hope when National Republicans came and campaigned for him that he told them he took issue with ending the Medicare guarantee and privatizing Social Security. But that's a fact that it happened. We can't let bankers on Wall Street have a hold of Social Security. It is too important, and the stakes are too large in order to make that happen. We can strengthen the program. I didn't hear any proposals from my opponent that would strengthen the program and ensure its solvency, which is exactly what the question asked. We can do that if we raise the cap for the billionaires and millionaires who are paying into the system as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are behind schedule. We started late and we've had some extra rebuttal time. I'm going to skip the last two of our pre-selected questions so that we can get in as many audience questions as possible. These questions were submitted to me by email ahead of time and selected by the editorial board. And this time we will start with Dr. Chabot, and I will ask them. What do you consider the most important issue you will be addressing as a member of Congress? I'm sorry, before you start, let me tell you that we will give 60 seconds each this time with a 20-second rebuttal period.
Primary responsibility of government, as our founders intended and we believe today, is to protect and defend this great nation and its people. And because of that, we have threats with a growing ISIS. We have Ebola, which could threaten all of us if not contained. I applaud the President for his work today with working with our military for quick reactionary forces. We've got to halt flights coming in from West Africa until we understand what it is that we're dealing with. We have to look at life through the lens simply of what kind of country or community do we want to see our children raised in. And that's why our founding fathers put up their forefront the protection and defense of the people. And that will be my primary job, is making sure that you and yours are safe day in and day out. Thank you.
Mayor Aguilar.
The most important issue for San Bernardino County is the creation of jobs, but the primary responsibility of government is our own safety. And we've done that. We have the strongest military in the world, and you and I both sleep under that safety net. But what we can do in San Bernardino County is to make sure that we kickstart our economy, make sure that we have path for education, make sure that we support small businesses, make sure that we're creating the businesses for the economy of the 21st century. Those are the issues that your member of Congress will be faced with as well.
You have 20 seconds if you'd like it.
Yeah, just briefly, Mayor Pete, we don't really have the strongest military so much anymore. Under this administration, they gave pink slips to about 100,000 of our military, many of them serving overseas.
I'm sorry, please.
That's right.
Pause for a moment.
We should all be upset at that. We have also
Dr. Chabot, hold on a moment, please.
We have also shrunk the Navy to pre-World War I levels. While the enemies across this globe grow. China has launched an aircraft carrier. Russia walks into Ukraine. There's a red line that people cross. Our nation is not safe, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lot of work to do.
Okay. Before you respond, I'm going to remind you that I need you to behave respectfully, please. Mayor Aguilar, 20 seconds.
I honor Dr. Chabot's commitment to the military and his service wearing our uniform. I didn't say that earlier, and I needed to. What we can do is by kickstarting our economy. We need to do that for San Bernardino County residents. We need to invest in a local economy. We need to invest in education. There are business groups working with community groups to make sure that our young people realize their full potential. We need to support those programs.
Thank you. Starting with Mayor Aguilar, what can be done at the federal level to reduce the worsening problem of students graduating from college, or not because of lack of funding, with crippling debt that stays with them for years and impacts their ability to own homes and even succeed financially? What are your positions on student loan interest rates and government-funded Pell Grants? If you need me to repeat that again, I will happily do it.
It's kind of difficult to hear you, but I got the crux of it. I know
I'm having a hard time
Yeah,
hearing
it's a
you.
little odd here, but no,
I
they
can
don't
answer
know
it
that.
for you, Pete, if you like.
That's all right. It's all right. I don't need the lifeline. Thank you. Thank you so much for the offer. What we need to do is reform our program. There's $1 trillion of student loan debt, and I have a decent portion of it, not the whole thing, don't worry. But what we need to do is to reform the program. I benefited from a Pell Grant. The federal government made an investment in me to attend this fine institution. I graduated a Bulldog, and I wear it as a source of pride each and every day. But I know that middle-class dream is fading for so many. And I would pledge to you to support student reform proposals that would reduce the interest rate. The federal government should not be making money on the backs of our young people. Our young people need to be focused on starting a job, starting a family, starting a business. They don't need to be burdened with excessive debt, and it's keeping some of our best and brightest from even entering the halls of these institutions.
Thank you. Do you want me to repeat it?
I think many of us have student loan debt, and I think that's part of a hindrance today for many of us even trying to buy homes. I know our family and many families have dealt with that. Look, I've got a BA, a master's, and a doctorate degree. My wife's got her master's from here at Redlands. We need to look at education a little bit differently in this country if we're going to succeed as a whole. The student loan debt is a major issue. We've got to keep rates low. But I have a hard time today when I talk to kids because so many of them think that their only way to be successful in life is to go to college. And it's not. People can be successful in many other venues. Trade skills, the military are just some examples, or maybe having our corporations, like many do, help to pay back that student loan debt. I think it's critical as we go forward. But we have to revamp, I think, our education process in many ways. Student loan debt is a burdensome issue. But I think we also have to look at high school, in many ways, should be the GE that our college students receive so they can accelerate quicker in college and focus in on those core classes that can get them through the process.
Do you want the 20 seconds? Okay.
The question is specifically about student loan reform. What we can do is allow young people to refinance their debt, just like those homeowners in the audience are allowed to refinance their home mortgage. We can do that. We do have great programs. The Colton Redlands Yucaipa ROP program is fantastic. And if you have not had a chance to take a look at it, you need to. We also need to limit the for-profit institutions who are in this space as well.
You want the 20 seconds?
So we got to make sure that our youth understand that education is critical to their success. And I've got those 4 beautiful kids at home, and of course, as a daddy, I'm selfish. I want them to go to college and marry a millionaire, and I get to get taken care of when I'm older. But the reality is that we have a challenge before us, and the middle class, the parents that I talk to, and the kids are suffering with that debt. and this is one more can we cannot kick down the road. And I pledge to work in Congress on both sides for a strong, sensible solution.
Dr. Chabot, you'll answer first. Public employee union influence presents a challenge for democratic government. San Bernardino is reeling in bankruptcy from years of public employee union influence over decisions on compensation and pensions it could not afford. The California Teachers Association is the most powerful union in California, so powerful that some local legislators have been afraid to oppose its positions. Have you received contributions, independent expenditures, or other support from public employee unions? How do we know that you will guard the public interest over special interests?
Thanks. I don't have support from public unions. But let me say this. My mother, special education public school teacher, God bless her. She works in one of the most challenging educational environments. She has relied on her union for support on many occasions. The problem is this. I think we've gotten away from the intent and purpose of the union today, where it is, in some cases, a political machine that backs a candidate over another candidate. And that, I think, is shameful. I think the intent and purpose for good working conditions and health and those things which are critical to success we've gotten away from. And I think we've got to revisit how unions treat the American public through the political process.
Mayor Aguilar.
As a local mayor, I've worked and sat across the table from public employee unions. I've sat at bargaining tables with some of my city council colleagues. We've shared some of the difficulties and the struggles that we've had here in the city. And you know what? They stepped up. Time and time again, our employees have stepped up. They took furloughs, they took reductions, because it was the right thing to do for Redlands. And some of them may support my candidacy and some of them might not, but they know with me that I'll always treat them fairly. I'll listen to them, I'll be thoughtful. I won't always agree, but I will hear them out. I don't know if I have independent groups spending on my behalf. It's the independent, so we wouldn't know. But I can tell you that I don't see anything wrong with someone who believes in unions who have built so much in our communities, for them exercising their right to collect $1 out of a paycheck or $2. I'm proud to have the support of the California Teachers Association. I'm proud to have the support of local employees who work so hard.
20 seconds if you want it.
You know, I've been a reserve deputy sheriff for 19 years. No union protection for me. We do the job because we love it. Teachers teach because they love the job. I've been in the military for 13 years and counting. We do it because we love the job. I think we've gotten away from this. When we mandate that employees pay into a political union fund that gets used in these kind of campaigns, millions of dollars, that to me is un-American, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to get back to the basics of this great nation of the people.
Thank you. And the final word.
I'm proud to have the support of local teachers and the California Teachers Association. I'm also proud to have the support of the San Bernardino Employee Benefits Association, those same reserve deputies who are out on our streets and in our communities. They know I'm the right choice for Congress. They know I'm the right choice to protect our communities, and they know I'm the right choice for Congress.
This question goes first to Mayor Aguilar. Are charter schools a threat to public education? Would traditional public schools dwindle and be robbed of their best and brightest students? Should the federal government encourage or discourage charter schools? You'll have 60 seconds.
I'm a firm believer in public schools, and I think we need to make every investment possible into our public schools. That is my approach. That's what I would support. But I do understand that there are charters who are playing by good rules, who are subject to audits. I don't believe that they should receive special rules. I don't believe that they should receive special favors. But I know for so many, they're just looking for a pathway out. I understand that. I can sympathize with that. But my heart is with public education at the K through 12 level.
I support charter schools. I support private schools. I support Catholic schools. I support taking the federal dollars and putting them into the control of the parents so they can decide where to spend your money in schools. Because I will be damned if I will send my children to a school, my young girls, where a man can walk into that restroom due to ridiculous state legislation. That is absurd. That is not right. That is not right. And so we see what happens when one party has total control in this state. We need good, strong balance of family values to protect the most innocent, and those are our children, so that they can succeed.
My opponent also supports vouchers that would take money out of public education. I have a clear message. I have a clear message for those young people who are in schools, and I know some of them are struggling. We need to invest in you. We need to invest in your school. We need to put as many resources as we possibly can into the classrooms to help our young people. That should be our commitment, and that should be our focus.
Again, dreams are great, but let's look at the reality, ladies and gentlemen. And for the teachers in this room, how many parents show up to your class? How about the PTA meetings? How about the issues that we deal with across the board of our young kids today, often being neglected in a society where anything goes? We've got a lot of challenges before us, and I want to make sure our children have the absolute very best. And in doing so, it requires tough decisions, to make courageous decisions, and to stand up when needed against the unions.
I think we can squeeze in 2 more questions before closing statements. This one directed to Dr. Chabot first. What is your position on fracking and its appropriateness for California, taking into account water requirements, potential for seismic instability, and economic impacts?
Sure, I think this is one of the most divisive issues that I've seen on energy. I think as long as it is done cleanly and safely, then I absolutely support it. We need to look domestically at our energy here, as we are today, at outpacing other nations in energy production. So I support smart technology, smart ways, and we've invested in this to make sure that we're not contaminating the groundwater that we drink. But the problem is, this has become politicized because it is oil, and therefore it is evil. And I think that is the most disgraceful and dishonest part of this conversation, because it halts the debate before we can even talk about it.
Just because there's different viewpoints doesn't mean that it's politicized. What we need to do is to make sure that we protect our groundwater, and right now we just don't know enough. So what's the harm in waiting? We don't need fracking in our communities. What we need to do is invest in renewable energy technology. We have sun more days than we know what to do with. We need to invest in those. We need to make those investments so we can take advantage of our place in Southern California, our place in the world to generate energy. That's what we can do. We should wean ourselves off of those traditional fossil fuels, coal and others. We need to be careful, and we need to be smart about what we do to our environment.
We actually already are investing in renewable energy. We've been doing it for quite some time, and we applaud those. But we take steps, little by little, to ensure that we are doing it responsibly. And again, I think we've got to look at the bigger picture here. We've got to understand how politicized the radical extremes on ends of this item have taken this today, where it is so combative and unable to have a frank discussion on what makes common sense.
My opponent said earlier government is not the answer, but now he's okay with making investments in renewable technology. What we need to do And the federal government offered this to our local communities. They offered us an energy efficiency block grant, and Redlands took that. We put photovoltaic on our highest user of power in the city. We've reduced our costs for the taxpayers, and we've reduced our carbon footprint.
And the final submitted question of the evening will begin with Mayor Aguilar. Do you favor increasing the availability of food stamps? Why or why not? Do you favor increasing the availability of food stamps?
I think it's unfortunate that San Bernardino County families are in this position, but we know that they struggle. We know what's happened to the Inland Empire economy over the last 10 years. And for those folks who it's their last means, they need to make sure that they're feeding their kids nutritious food. That's what we can do. In the city of Redlands, we want them to eat healthy. So what we offered them was the use of those EBT cards for our own farmers market. Those are the steps that we can do. Those are the steps we can do to ensure that our young people and those at-risk families have every opportunity to offer healthy and nutritious food for San Bernardino County young people. That's what we can do. That's what we should do by working together.
Dr. Chabot, 60 seconds.
God bless the people that need assistance. As Christians, we all want to lift them up. The church and communities are there for you, as well as I. I grew up poor without food stamps, didn't know what they were, but I had 3 paper routes to support the family and have been working pretty much consistently since the age of 10. I know what hard work is. As a reserve deputy sheriff, I've seen the challenges of our families. But California has become a food stamp capital of the world generationally within some families, and that is an irresponsible measure. What I want to do is help people get off food stamps by equaling their hours in the community of community service for 40 hours of community service for the food stamps they're getting until we can get them employed and on the right track. But my heart also goes out to those single moms and dads who are doing all they can, the disabled and the challenged. My aunt depends on government assistance as blind and crippled. I understand, but I've also seen the other side, and we've got to make this system better.
And who's supposed to watch our kids when we're out performing that community service? We need to strengthen San Bernardino County families, and that means occasionally we need to offer them a hand up, not a handout. We need to offer San Bernardino County families that hand up, and that means ensuring that their children have the nutrition that they need.
And the final word?
If we continue down the path as we are today, with our legislature driving us into a hole, the administration driving us this way, we will have more people on food stamps in the Inland Empire. And we all agree that's not what we want. We need jobs. We need more job training. We need to help people develop their skills, not talk about how we could increase food stamps. That is not American, ladies and gentlemen.
Did I promise a good debate? These guys did really well, I think. Give them both a hand, please. I also appreciate the opportunity to prove I can get in front of a microphone and not sing. You'll have 2 minutes each for closing statements, starting with Dr. Chabot.
People often ask why I'm running. It's because I'm a father of 4 beautiful children, and I want to make sure that the world that we hand them is strong, free, and prosperous. Yet 70% of the American population today believes that we are handing them, the next generation, a nation less prosperous. That's unacceptable. And my friends, that is not a good sign. As I have done in uniform, I will always put my country first. Serving in a combat zone with America's bravest, never did we care what political party you were from, Rather, we were all fighting together on the same team, the same mission, in the same fight. Today, America is in trouble. Better days do lie ahead, but we need leaders who are ready to address these critical issues head on and ready on day one. I pledge to fight against the insurmountable special interest money that has corrupted this race and many across this country. I pledge to shed light on the darkest corners that have broken Washington, D.C. I pledge to fight for the children, the born and the unborn. I pledge to fight for our freedoms, for better paying jobs, strong family values, safer streets, improved education and VA hospitals, and a secure border and a middle class that can actually afford to buy a home. We will always remember, we will always be proud, we will always be prepared, so we will always be free, in the words of Ronald Reagan. I ask not only for your vote, but for the spirit of compassion and cooperation so that we can work together, united to improve and safeguard this great nation. Join with me, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all people of all parties. It is all hands on deck. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Mayor Aguilar, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you to Doug, to Bo, and to Dr. Janiski for joining us here today. And thank all of you for taking the time on a Monday evening to come out and to listen to us have this discussion. You're such an important part of this process, and those watching online as well. This campaign, I've talked about the middle class. I've talked about the middle class initiative, making investments in education, creating jobs for the 21st century economy, and making sure that we honor and protect our veterans and our seniors. I'm the only one up here on stage who has a proven track record of working together to accomplish common goals. When the Daily Bulletin and the Sun endorsed my candidacy, they said this: Pete Aguilar will translate experience for effective representation at the federal level. I'm proud to have their support. I'm proud to have the support of law enforcement officials, teachers, and Planned Parenthood. My grandmother tells me 2 things every time I leave her. I could just be going out for a Slurpee and she'd tell me these same 2 things. She says, mucho cuidado, be careful. And she tells me, never forget who you are and where you came from, mijo. If you send me to Congress, I will never forget who I am and where I came from and who I represent, and that's San Bernardino County. If you give me your vote and your support, I promise I will never forget where I came from. November 4th, I'd love to have your vote in 15 short days. Thank you so much for coming out.
From the University of Redlands, you have been listening to K-Dog, Redlands College Radio. Thank you for tuning in, and now back to regular programming.